It's good to see you again. I'm glad that you're here. Today we're going to start a new devotional series coming from 1 Thessalonians chapter 2, verses 17 through 20. Today we're going to focus on verse 17. And the title of the series is, What is our hope, our joy, our crown? What is it? And we get to find out through the words of Paul, and as he's writing on behalf of himself and Silas to the newly founded church in Thessalonica. You see, Paul and Silas had traveled to Thessalonica. They had brought the gospel. They had converted many of the Greeks and some of the Jews. And what had happened is that some of the Jews were upset at Paul, and they really drove them out of town. And they actually went into Jason's house church and just kind of caused a great uproar. Paul and Silas had to flee, and they ended up in the region of Berea. And of course, Berea, they had great fruit for their evangelistic efforts. And it said the Bereans studied the word daily to find out the truth. And of course, we've always prided ourselves in our denominational backgrounds or Bible churches that we want to be good Bereans. We want to dig into the word and search it daily. But what had happened is there was concern in the heart of Paul and Silas over those that they had left in Thessalonica. And they were worried that the Thessalonians would maybe not stay grounded in their faith. And so Paul and Silas write a letter. And this letter to the Thessalonians lays out their concern and their desire. And here in the 17th verse, Paul says, We, brethren, having been taken away from you for a short time in presence, not in heart, endeavored more eagerly to see your face, with great desire. We were taken away for a short time, but we desire greatly to see your face. I think this is really fitting in our current context because many of us have been separated. We've been isolated due to the pandemic. There's varying degrees of releasings of lockdowns and how that will result in maybe renewed time together. But we've been through a great time in our world of separation. And this separation really does cause anxiety. It causes depression. Even with the masks, oftentimes, you forget what it is to look somebody in the face and see their full face. And so we just feel like we are separated. And just as in our day, nobody intended for this to happen, there seems to have been something that just came out of nowhere, and it has resulted in a great loss to our world and cause for isolation. In Paul's day, he went to proclaim the gospel, the good news of Jesus Christ, and it resulted in him and Silas being ran out of town, and their new friends, their new children in the faith, being isolated. And so he has written a letter. It's really interesting because if you go back to the first century, you're trying to think, how would I strive to stay connected? How would I strive to stay connected to those that I love, to those that I just want to make sure that our relationship doesn't go cold? And the only opportunity available to you about that time was writing a letter. In fact, for most of human history, that was about the only way to bridge the gap of communication when you were separated. You would write a letter and you would hope that your mail carrier would get it there. And so Paul writes this letter. And in this letter, he expresses his desire for them. He gives them instruction. He encourages them in the faith. And it's really interesting because I think he's laying out for us the significance of working to stay connected in spite of being separated. And that if you truly desire to see each other face to face, that day will come. In fact, what we'll see from the following devotions here is that the desire to be together is actually opposed on a spiritual level. That Satan's behind this separation, and that eventually that separation will end, and one day or another we will be reunited, and if it's not in this life, it'll be in the next life, and it will be forever. And so the day for reunion is coming, and that reunion is going to be powerful and wonderful, but don't lose heart in the meantime. And I would encourage you to be like Paul and look for ways to connect with people. We have new converts that were part of our churches. We have those in our family that really need uplifting. And are you making an effort to stay connected? Are you writing letters? Are you engaging with maybe social media? Are you picking up the phone? Are you texting? How do we try to help people stay connected in this time? Because as Christians, we ought to have a desire to stay connected to the church. In fact, we're part of one body. When we celebrate the Lord's Supper, it reminds us that we are part of the one body of Christ, and that one body will someday be united forever with Christ. And that produces a desire, a hope that we'll be together soon. And so do like Paul did and find ways to drop a line, give a call, find a way to tell the people in your life that that you still care about them and that you're looking forward to the day when you can be together again. In particular, I think it's important, especially if there are new converts that you know, people that are young in the faith, that you really make an effort to find and seek them out, because they are really fragile in the faith, and these types of times of isolation lead to depression and even despair. And we're seeing that in our culture, that people are turning towards depression and what that brings. And you might be the one that can prevent something terrible from happening by reaching out to people. So please try to do that. And recognize that your relationship with God is what is going to maintain your fervor and your desire to be with other people. And I just wanted to close with this quote from James Packer. Christian fellowship is two-dimensional, and it has to be vertical before it can be horizontal. We must know the reality of fellowship with the Father and with His Son, Jesus Christ, before we can know the reality of fellowship with each other in our common relationship to God. The person who is not in fellowship with the Father and the Son is no Christian at all, and so cannot share with Christians the reality of their fellowship. I think that's a powerful quote. We have to remain in our connection with God before we can really understand the fellowship we have with one another. I hope you're encouraged. I hope you have a wonderful week. Take care.